Stephen Slevin, a man in his 50s, was arrested in 2005 for driving under the influence of alcohol, but he never had a trial. Incapable of making bond and being judged as suicidal, he was thrown into solitary confinement. Slevin wasn't forgotten in a physical sense, as he was given basic necessities such as food and water. He was, however, forgotten by the legal system. For the next 22 months, Slevin would remain in solitary confinement without even having a trial. For almost 2 years, he was completely isolated from the outside world. No sunlight and no human contact. The guards did nothing to help him despite his cries, but instead watched him deteriorate. He tried to communicate with the jail nurse through notes which read, "I have no slept in days," and "I'm in a deep depression." In response, he was regularly drugged. Slevin decayed physically and mentally. Prior to the arrest, he was suffering with depression, which only intensified and led to delusions. Along with his hair and beard growing out, his toenails eventually had grown to curl beneath his toes. He lost weight, contracted fungal infections, and his dental hygiene had become so poor that he removed one of his own teeth. After nearly 2 years, relatives of Slevin from across the country began asking about his whereabouts. Soon after, charges against him were dropped, and he was released. Upon release, Slevin demanded an explanation and compensation. There were some clues as to the cause for the neglect. The medical director at the facility had apparently administered sedatives to Slevin without ever visiting him. The nurse had no credentials in the medical field, and according to Slevin's lawyer, the jailhouse had a long history of negligence due to corruption. The court eventually settled on $15.5 million as a reward. While it's not surprising that county officials were upset by the settlement, Slevin, now a multi-millionaire, was also not happy, as he still suffers with depression and PTSD from the 22-month stint and was put on medication to combat his illnesses. There is no information on whether or not any of the officials were charged for Slevin's mistreatment.